Hey everybody, Kaysha here, and today I am here with my friend
Jennifer Guskin,
and we need your help. We are right now working on advocacy for combating human trafficking, and here's why. So we'll give you a little bit of background of our story and why we're doing what we're doing.
I was adopted as an infant by a couple who sold me throughout my childhood. I have been to Epstein Island and on multiple Lolita Express types of flights as a child. After I went public, Child Protective Services opened a substance-exposed newborn case, even though all tests came back negative, and they told me that if I wouldn't stop posting on social media, I would never see my daughter again. I started to connect how I was adopted as an infant and then sold throughout my childhood, how many other children who have been through the adoption, foster, and CPS pipelines have also been trafficked to Epstein's Elk.
And as many of you guys know already, based on the work that we do at the Karis Project, I'm an American Indian born in Canada under the Jay Treaty. My father and I were exposed in the improper contagion mitigations for the COVID pandemic in early 2020. As a result of this, I lost everything: a house, cars, corporate assets, jobs. Bank accounts were shut down in Canada, and I fled to the US as an American Indian, fully documented, and was trafficked by rogue agents in ICE and other agents in the government, and forced to live with single American men. I was even imprisoned for 7 months initially, and then trafficked throughout the states. Put on full surveillance tracking and wasn't allowed to leave the city, house, or state without permission, or work without permission. And that happened for many years, and I was on and off the streets because of that, and in and out of shelters. And that is just a small example of what many go through in this trafficking system, be it the family courts or otherwise. So that's why the Karis Project will be going to DC to speak with representatives and do live reporting. We're also going to be in contact with other families who are dealing with human trafficking, and through the CPS courts or through any other means, lesser versions of trafficking, and doing reporting on them live and otherwise. We will also be working on, we ultimately want to shine light on what's going on with the trafficking here in the US. And we also want to meet with various agencies in DC, and we'll be going back and forth for training sessions and other things so that we can be better equipped to help people deal with resolving some of the issues that we're seeing. We will also be putting forth petitions in government to help people get justice, and that's something that we have been working on already so far. We have some petitions that have recently been filed in the state of Colorado, Michigan, Texas, and Arizona, and we will be continuing.
But we can't do this on our own. We will be traveling to events and training courses, as well as DC on a consistent basis. We also have to get acceptable equipment, such as computers, cameras, interview gear, etc. There will be other miscellaneous costs that would also be like gas, food, and rooms if necessary.
So that is why we are working towards combating human trafficking, and that is exactly why we need your help. We cannot do this alone, and most what the Karis Project does is on its own dime. And so we do love and appreciate each and every one of you that support us and all the work that we do. As many of you know, we also live stream on Lindell TV every day. And everything we do, like I said, is on our own dime. So we appreciate all the love and support and all the people who do donate. And we would very much love and appreciate that still. Thank you everybody for your time and considerations. And thank you for all the support. And we will catch you guys in the next one, and hopefully we might see you guys in the future and come across you and maybe be able to do some great things together.
Hello everybody, and welcome to the Karis Project podcast. Today we're going to have kind of a discussion on kind of what's been going on, and like the title says, when good men silence, it fuels evil's rise. And this is an epidemic of what happens when good men do nothing. And we're seeing too much of this in that situation. And, I mean, at the end of the day, we need to do something and do something different. I'm going to just pull up, where is it? Where is it? Yeah, I'm going to pull up a clip, and we're looking at all of this stuff, how feminism impacts certain things, and so forth. And we don't, you know, I don't even know what to say anymore. Like, I'm not talking about the people, I'm talking about this ideology and how it's driven people insane. And when I say that, men and women, they have equal rights and access before to God. And there's no two ways about that, right? And so we need to start making sure that we treat people with the respect that God expects them to be treated, so that we don't have to have all of this nonsense going on. Because if people treated people fairly, we wouldn't have this situation. And so, especially as Christians, we have an obligation. And when we see wickedness, we also have an obligation to do something about it. And we have fallen short of that. But I'm going to bring up a clip here, and I'm going to show kind of what, this whole feminist stuff, who's benefiting from it. So let's bring this up.
The whole sexual revolution has been a boon for caddish men, for the Hugh Hefner types. It's justified by contemporary liberal feminists as being something beneficial for women, but in fact those who have benefited the most are the ones who have the most contempt for women.
Yeah, and I think that there is a sort of defeatism in thinking that we can't possibly constrain those men. We just have to try and ameliorate the effects of their behaviour. That's a very sad move in feminism.
When we think about this whole situation, a lot of the masculinity that they label toxic and they go after the men, these are the men that are required to protect the society that we're in and to protect the women. And then they push them into situations where these, like, the worst ilk of men are benefiting from having women in vulnerable spaces. And we're seeing this happening over and over again. They're not looking at the whole cause and effect. Like, this whole idea of how crime is getting out of control, single parenthood and pushing women into men's spaces are putting women in very vulnerable situations where they traditionally weren't. And they try to make it look like a power struggle and all these different things. But when women are when women are no longer forming families, they're losing that male protection. Then they're being forced to go among other males unprotected to be placed in those situations. Well, should they do those things? No. The world we live in, there's always some criminal, right? There's just, no matter what we do, we want to reduce the risk, but there's always going to be something wrong. And Kaysha, I'm sure you can attest to this.
Yeah, I actually didn't hear it, the video.
They're saying that the ones who benefit the most from feminism are the unscrupulous men like Hugh Hefner types, the ones who hate the women the most.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, because they are the ones that get the easy access to women instead of working hard for them, and they violate and abuse women, they prey on them instead of, having to go through the proper channels and hard work that you're supposed to have access to a good woman. It's disgusting. Yeah.
And this
They
is,
have no boundaries.
yes, and this is where this whole trafficking thing just went out of control, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah, like,
this is just like, I mean, I don't even know what to say anymore. It's just, you're getting to the point where you're like, why do we keep doing this over and over again?
yeah, like the men today, the ones that like are those unscrupulous men. They're completely insufferable, and they're the kind of men that will try any slimy way to get close to you or to touch you, or to violate your boundaries or your space, even though you have nothing to do with them, even though you're not dating them, you're not interested in them, but they'll do any type of thing, and they'll use these the new modern ways about going about things to justify their behaviors, why they're behaving that way towards you, instead of respecting your boundaries and your space. It is so disgusting and so aggravating. Just thinking about it makes me want to vomit. Like, because I can think about so many instances where men do that and they just think, I don't know why they think it's okay. I don't know why they think it's okay, because if you see that I'm not violating any of your boundaries, I'm respecting your space, I'm respecting your autonomy as a person, and you're not usurping your own authority over yourself, but men will just, they don't care. Like the men today that are like the Hugh Hefner types and whatever, they just do whatever they want. They don't
Yes.
care. And it is so, I can't understand it, because it's like, I'm sitting here minding my own business. Why are you touching me? Why are you trying to be in my space? I don't like you. I don't
W-
want to be around you. I'm here because I have to be at the same place as you or in the same area, just like everyone else.
But these Hugh
Keep your
Hefner,
hands to yourself.
but these Hugh Hefner types of people are going ahead and they're now making sure that they're pushing pornography in the hands of children,
Yeah.
right? And this is a bad thing. We're going to bring this guy up and he's going to show a clip of what happens when kids are, you know, get the pornography as a kid, which is happening like crazy. So we'll just listen to what he has to say.
I really love to educate people about the effects of pornography, especially the harms of pornography, because I think there are a lot of harms out there that people don't realize are there. And so I like to educate people so they can make a good choice to consider before consuming. I've done a lot of research on the harms of pornography, and I think those harms are very well documented. What isn't documented as well in the research literature is what helps to combat pornography to get men to stop using it. I want to demonstrate those things from a research perspective on what does work, so that we can point people in more promising directions. And then we also looked at a couple other things like how old were people when they first looked at pornography and what effect does that have now. One of the things that we didn't expect to find in the study, if a college man had started looking at pornography before the age of 10, he was almost looking at pornography 3 times as often as a college man who started looking at 11 or older. So the younger men start looking at pornography, the more they're looking at it now. But I think we learned an important lesson, and that is the younger people start, the more dangerous it can be.
So, so when you have these guys that are sitting down there doing this stuff, putting this in the hands of children, and you know, pushing, controlling the narrative, and then now exploiting women to do this, because there was a time where people were doing things that was a smaller time, but now they're straight up exploiting women and they're grooming them and they're getting other women to do this,
Yeah,
right?
they don't care. Like I can't with it. Like I really wish that society went back to a really traditional way about going about things, where men could not even be alone with women without being looked at sideways, because in reality there's no reason, for the most part, 98% of the time, for men to be alone with women. There's just no reason. What do you want to do? Like, why, what solution is she going to provide you as a man to do what you need to do, whatever you're looking for? What information is she going to give you or help you with that's going to get you along your way? Nothing really. Nothing really, unless you're trying to actually exploit her or proposition her, in which case you're talking to the wrong person. So like I feel like men, they need to be beaten. I'm sorry, we need to go back in my mind, we need to go back to a place in society where men who have nothing to do with you get consequences for trying to groom women and children in behavior, even women who are doing it. I don't care who's doing it. They just need consequences for grooming people, trying to groom people into filth. Because also, are you not tired? Like, if you're a married person, I can't understand. My brain, it cannot make the connections in the wiring for this to make sense. I cannot understand. Are you not tired from sleeping with your spouse? Why do you need pornography? Why do you need to groom other women? Why do you need to groom children? Why do you need to be so perverse? Like, I don't, like, this is things in my brain that just will never make sense. Because why are you insatiable like this? Why are you so messed up in the head that you cannot control yourself? That is terrifying. Do you not look yourself in the mirror and think to yourself, my God, I am a demon. I am terrifying. Like, do you not think to yourself, my God, I need help? Like, I don't know where the self-reflection has gone. The mirror, you're looking back at the mirror and there's nothing staring back at you. You're just
No,
confident. How?
no. I I get it. Like, I mean, when you look at this, you have to look at the when you're having these people push this kinds of stuff, you're gonna see some seriously crazy things that are going on. And I'm gonna bring up a clip before, because you sit down and you start thinking about what happens when you get these children on pornography and you're seeing this violent type of thing. And we're going to bring this up here because this is just disgusting. So I'll just put it there.
On this edition of The Fifth Estate,
I lifted up my shirt and I said, look what they've done to me, look what they've done to me, I can't take this anymore.
we're in Alberta on the trail of a global online network of sadistic predators growing in Canada.
The only word I could come up with was it's just absolute evil.
Kids have committed suicide because of this group. Self-harm to the point where they need serious medical intervention.
They're going after vulnerable children,
The group called the 764 it targets minors.
demanding they kill pets and even their parents.
I would sleep with a kitchen knife under my pillow.
Our investigation uncovers the deepening danger on and offline. An escalating threat police are only beginning to understand.
Why wasn't this girl's case a priority?
I think that this is the greatest terror attack facing Western society.
I'm Joanna Rumeliotis. This is The Fifth Estate.
They loved watching me in pain. They fed my tears and I fed their desires. I told them I loved it. I told them I wanted more. But in truth, I was their mindless slave. My name is Trinity. I was 14 when I was groomed by members of 764, and I was exploited for 3 years. It just became so painful. I didn't feel real. I didn't feel like a human being. We've tried to tell this story, and nobody's listened. Nobody believes it. It's too obscure. It's too obscene.
764 defies the imagination in the worst of ways. Trinity had been lured into a global online network of satanic neo-Nazi extremists, terrorizing thousands of children around the world. This story may be hard to watch. 764's cruelty is so sadistic, it's unlike anything police have ever seen. And no child, especially a vulnerable one, is safe.
Abuse was very familiar to me, especially from a male. Especially like manipulative abuse. I had something happen to me when I was really young. I was sexually assaulted by a family member. He stopped assaulting me, and I felt like I still needed that. I still needed that male validation in a terrible way. It's really sick and twisted.
Trinity was a perfect target for 764.
I can't take this anymore, man. I need a hug. Like, watching this. Like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. I don't understand the sick world we live in. Like, things like this make me feel like I don't deserve love, because this is the kind of people that we deal with in every single day. The people that are walking around sick like this, they'll abuse the hell out of you. And then that little girl, it's like she said, oh, like, people don't want to believe it. It's too obscure. It's too obscene. They don't want to believe the story. And then she's going to get shunned away and nobody's going to give her any love and kindness. Like, what the hell, man?
And this
What
is
the
in
hell?
Canada. This is
Yeah,
Canada.
yeah. Alberta, Danielle Smith's Alberta. Why she's not looking into 764? That's the first question we should be asking ourselves. Where is she? She has all the time and money to talk about all the money she wants to make and how she's going to be well invested in doing certain businesses with the United States and Trump. She's very much looking forward to filling her pockets, but she can't look out for the well-being of children, especially not the ones where they're convicted pedophiles and they're just giving them new jobs in different parts of the country, higher paying jobs in higher positions where they have more access to children. And then you see stuff like this coming out with this girl in Red Deer, Alberta. What in the fresh hell? What in the fresh hell? And then the only reason they even done anything about it is because the FBI came and stepped in and done something about it.
That's the whole point. That's the whole thing with Canada. This is the issue. They have left things alone until they got shamed. It's like Pastor Arthur Pawlowski. They were coming after him very hard until he got shamed. They got shamed when he went and talked in Europe and then started talking in the States.
Yeah.
Right? And people began to see what was going on. This girl, they were going to leave her in that situation and not give her the help they need until the Americans came asking. This is a disturbing trend. And when you're putting these children, because these were primarily a lot of young kids and young adults that were involved in this stuff. But what ends up happening when you do this? Like when you're giving children this pornography, I'm going to pull up a clip here so that people can get an idea of what happens in their brain when you're giving this to a kid.
Well, food is about 150% spike of dopamine, and sex is 200, which is equivalent to morphine. Sexual orgasm is equivalent to a morphine rush. That's a pretty powerful reward. There's also, though, the frontal areas over our forehead, and these are important in judgment and in weighing the pleasure that we want. And so you have these competing areas. You have this dopaminergic drive that says do it, with this frontal break of the brain that says think about it, weigh it. And in a way, they're competing. In young people, those frontal areas aren't fully developed. And so that break isn't there. Our frontal judgment volitional areas aren't developed until we're in our mid to late 20s. And so you have an 8-year-old with this undeveloped brain who doesn't really have the ability to weigh or to judge what they're seeing, whether it's harmful, not harmful, what will the result be if they participate in this activity. They don't even know what it is. And so when we flood the child's brain with these powerful sexual images, which provide this physical, emotional overload, the child is powerless. It's absolutely impossible for them to resist this kind of stimulus.
Now we combine that with a young male who has high hormones and is driven by interest, and then you combine it with the novelty of the internet. So all these qualities are put together and they're matched with our highest natural reward and your gene's number one job, and that's reproduction. And that's what makes today's high-speed internet porn so enticing.
When they're putting these unscrupulous men that are putting these things in the hands of children, they are destroying them and creating the circumstances to make like those guys that were in that satanic cult. Because if you're like some of these guys, when they're there at 6, 7, 8, getting that kind of stuff, you're finished. Your mind is finished. Right? Like, you don't have, like they said, the breaks that are in your brain, the judgment centers. And we would develop our judgment centers far earlier if they didn't do the school the way they did now.
Wait a second. They're saying that children don't have the brakes on their judgment center to stop them from doing certain things.
Yes.
Which is why kids are going around raping each other right now. Why
Yes.
they're arresting so many kids for raping each other at 13, 12, 14, 10
Because
years old, 9 years old.
yes, if they
Because they see this stuff and they don't have the self-control. It's just like I said. I've been saying this for years. You show a kid Spider-Man, they're going to be jumping off their damn
that's
couch within
exactly
30
this
minutes.
is
You show them some pornography, they're going to be raping their brother, their sister, their friend, whatever, because that's all they're seeing. That's all they're going to be practicing it on somebody, and we're watching them arrest people in Alberta, children, for doing this.
I'll be the first one to sit down and say I don't like pornography. But
no, I don't like
I
it
will
either.
tell you the same one thing I will tell you right now, there is a huge fundamental difference between showing it to an adult and showing it to a child.
100%.
If somebody wants to go in
they
and,
don't know the
and
difference.
engage in that and they're an adult, I can't stop them, right? I can't. That's their own choice. But when you're putting this in front of a child...
Wait a second. How old? How old are they? How old does your brain develop the brakes? Because there are a lot of children they are
Your
arresting for
brakes
raping
aren't...
each other.
They're not
Like, that's
fully
not funny,
developed
but
until you're in the mid-20s. And a lot of that has to do
yeah, but
with
for the
a lot...
purpose of like capacity, where you can say now the child understands what they're doing is
Well, I'm
wrong,
saying
because
when
there's a lot of kids doing this.
when they're a teenager, they begin to distinguish right from wrong, but they have no brakes.
You know what? Then all these people who are saying that children are 304s for having sex when they're teenagers, they're wrong. They're wrong. The children are children, as I said, who do not know right from wrong. They don't know the difference. They don't have the control in their brain to tell them don't do this.
No, they
So
don't.
you can't. So all these red pill people online judging children for doing sexual activity as children. Oh my God.
Well, first
God
of all,
forbid.
because they don't understand the
It's crazy.
consequences, and when you become a teenager, you become a lot more impulsive.
Right.
And then a lot of these times when you're a kid, they'll put you to try you as an adult, which in many cases I don't agree with because of the way that your brain development is. Right?
Well, yeah.
Because
kids can't even stop themselves from eating candy.
Well, I mean,
cookies.
A lot of these kids are heavily manipulated.
Yeah. They're being abused. That's the problem. They're being abused.
That's the whole problem. And then you start getting a lot of these people like this. And we're going to pull up this next clip here.
We've been investigating the hidden online world of incels.
I have not interacted with a female that is not related to me in over 3 years.
They're mostly young men, usually virgins, who can't find a romantic or sexual partner.
I must become more attractive. It's my last chance.
But on the extreme end, some incels are becoming more menacing.
There was quite a few women that I did want to break their nose so they would be ugly.
Where staunch incels blame women and attractive men for the reason why they're not in a relationship.
Around 60 terror attacks that can be linked to incel actors.
We wanted to know who these incels were, what they believed in, and just how extreme it could get. In this two-part investigation, we gain access to a world that is usually closed off, especially to women.
You see,
that's so disgusting. Like, it makes my blood boil hearing that a man wanted to break her nose to make her ugly so that he could feel more comfortable. It makes sense why men beat women now. They are literally incel-minded men that are just jealous of the women, so they decide to go with them and just beat the living daylights out of them on a random Tuesday. That's why they come home and do that?
No. A lot of those guys wouldn't be doing that, but they're feeding them this. Those are the guys that are living on porn, and they're living on that violent stuff. They're the guys that will sit in their basement and they're consuming this thing all of the time. And what does it do? You become more violent when you watch that. So when they sit down and see that they've been consuming this from when they're young, and then they can't get girls, and then they don't get what they want to become violent. Right? This is happening because this was not a huge problem like this. And then what ends up happening is that the girls that would normally they would be able to get those girls. These girls are all thinking that they can get that they're thinking that they're 10s, 7s, 8s when they're really 2s, 3s, and 4s on the same playing field as these guys, and they would normally gravitate to those guys to get something that's kind of within their range. They're not, because social media is giving them, and then they can put all this filters, and they can get people to pay for plastic surgery and all this kind of nonsense. And then they're chasing that, the pinnacle of the men, which a lot of men, some men are just unscrupulous and they'll just run through them, and some of the men may not be, some men that might be a 7 or 6 might end up sleeping with the girl that's a 2 or a 3, right? And then all of that kind of stuff, but you'll never stay with her, right?
Yeah, but then that means the men that are going around actually sleeping with loads of women, they're actually incel-minded people. They actually think that they can't, they think that they can't get a woman who actually values them enough to stay with them long-term and commit to them, so they
those men are also, a lot of them are weak. They're just a little bit more disciplined in areas, and they have the better genes on the genetic dice, and so they can get the money, but they're weak, but they have women that will come in there and sleep with them, as opposed to the guys that are on the other end of the spectrum that don't have the genetic, as they said, they lost the genetic lottery. And so they can't get what they want, and they're still consuming the same pornography that made them weak, except they can't get women.
My head hurts, man. I don't know. Beat them all is like, just punch them all in the face. I don't care at this point.
But then the girls are also now being exposed to porn, and they're thinking about what that is supposed to be like. And then you have girls like Bonnie, or what was it, Lily Phillips, that got exposed to pornography at, like, I don't know, 10 or 11 or something like that. And she's like, oh, it didn't bother me.
Well, clearly it blasted the hell out of her lack of already self-control as a kid. Like what he talked about in the brain, they don't have the brakes. It just put her lack of brakes in overdrive. It sped up her car. And she's crashing full speed.
And remember what Angela White was talking about when the people are in that space and they're masturbating, and the guy talked to you, said that orgasm is like a morphine hit.
Morphine.
So you have a child that gets that stimulation while they're doing this, and they're finished, right? Like, I mean, they're gonna be like, oh, that feels good, and then they're like, the brakes aren't developed, right? And then the more you do it, the more you're just gonna override that, and even when your brakes are developed, you're still gonna override it, because this is like addiction that you've built up so long, and you're gonna change the way that your brain operates, and you're gonna feel like you're gonna die without it, right? And this is where you see some of these women that are becoming very, very hypersexual. And there's nothing wrong with having a high sex drive, but there are times where you have to have, like, the brakes come in and control it. And now they're going into extreme risky situations that even women that were in the porn industry, like Lisa was talking about, what Bonnie Blue and Lily Phillips are doing, which is just out of control. Like, especially the barely legal stuff. How many kids does she know that they're not 18? And then on top of that, she's just using them as props because she's the only one making money out of it. It's not like on a porn set where they pay the men and the women. There might be differences in pay, but everybody's getting paid. So she's exploiting them for her own personal use and her own gratification, right? Like this is a severe objectification of the men that are there, and then their lives are going to be damaged after they go in that horrendous situation. Somebody recognizes them. Well, you are one of 1,000. Like, get lost. We don't need you, right? And then girl find out that you're in that lineup. I don't want to talk to you, right? They're going to be like, kind of nasty filth is that, right? So this is bad all over. And this is why people need to set up and so forth. And then we had the conversation where where we're going to go back to this clip here where Alicia Gross and this guy talking about the guy said he liked learning from porn, and then she brought something to his attention about that. So let's just look at that here.
If I'm going on Pornhub and I'm getting that, that's one thing.
Let me stop you really quick. Would you like her, because you said earlier that you learned you felt more comfortable about what to do during sex from watching porn. Would you like your daughter to learn how to do sex from porn? Do you think that that's how she should be taught of how she should act? Sorry, I mean, she's 2.5.
No,
so
no. It's not that it's weird. What you're asking me is like, as a father, thank you. What you're essentially asking me is like, you benefited from some of the things that you had seen in your youth.
You probably did not learn how to eat pussy.
I actually learned that from a YouTube video.
Yeah, well, I have a video on Pornhub of me fully dressed explaining with a fucking diagram how to eat pussy because it pisses me off. Because people watch porn and think that we're doing stuff for camera angles that looks good.
No, but let me retort this though.
Okay.
So your initial inquiry was like, would I want my daughter to learn from other things? Well, here's the thing. Who else is going to teach her? Okay. No.
Yeah,
but let me give you a caveat. I sought that information out.
Mm-hmm.
So like when I'm learning to go down on a woman, I'm going on YouTube, and it's not like they're hitting me with graphic novels. So I think there's a way to do both. I think there's a way to educate without necessarily indoctrinating,
yes,
right?
But porn is not an educational video. No part of it should be looked at as what. So much of it is completely unrealistic. The amount of things that I have done with my body. A teenage girl should not do the things with their body that I have done with my body. It's absolutely inappropriate. They should not look. Boys are watching like girls get like double analed and thinking that they should be able to do that to their 16-year-old girlfriend. That's completely unacceptable.
That's a stretch.
Yeah,
no pun intended.
That's entirely uncool.
Okay,
so if you're going to use, I mean, I believe that there should be like, I mean, did you see that movie, The Girl Next Door, with Alicia Cuthbert or whatever?
Oh my God, I'm sorry.
Well, a very old movie. Anyways,
educate me.
The girl's like used to be a porn star, and then she quits, and then she's like meets this guy at high school, and like they're dating, and like it's like a whole, I don't know, it's a great movie. But anyways, they end up doing this. The boy ends up doing this like sex ed video with porn stars. That was like an actually like a sex ed video that people might actually watch. Yeah, it was like rather than like they show you in high school that's like, oh, you don't want to, like whatever. It's
okay.
So like something like that was actually made to be educational is different than like the stuff that we do in porn on film for money is not even physically possible for some.
You're correct. So let me go back to the original question that you asked me.
Okay.
Would I want my daughter to learn from porn? No. The ultimate answer to that question is no.
That's good.
But do I want her to have like sex education? Absolutely.
Yes, but she shouldn't get that from the internet. I mean, she shouldn't get it from porn.
I also don't think that she should get it from a lot of like.
I know.
I
think
so
she
this goes
should,
back to my
honestly,
thing.
I hate to say this, but I think she should get it from her parents.
I agree. Well, here's the thing. It's not binary. It's not like, will she learn this from like me sitting down having a conversation with her and then her mom sitting down having a conversation with her. It's like a pie chart. And the way I think that it works best is actually like 50% me, 10% her friends, like whatever stupid stories they have, 30% like sex education through the schools, and like 10% porn. Because here's the thing.
Girls are having anal at 9 years old now.
Oh, well, not legally.
I know, but none of it's legal. You can't legally have sex as a child. You can't consent until you're 16 in most states.
Kids can have sex with kids.
No, it cannot. Not legally. They absolutely cannot. You cannot consent. You can't. The legal age of consent.
So if I'm like a 16-year-old and my girlfriend's a 16-year-old.
In most states, 16 is the legal age of consent.
This is going to sound so bad because it looks like I'm freaking like arguing like, hold up now, Alicia.
Yeah, wait a minute.
What I'm trying to say is at a certain point,
14,
I was a teenager and I engaged in sex with another teenager and I felt like it was pretty consensual.
It might have been consensual, but it's not legal. Technically. No, I mean, I don't think anybody's getting in trouble for it.
I never knew I was a criminal.
Two 14-year-olds having sex with each other is not legal because neither one of them is legally able to
consenting adult.
Yeah, they're not consenting
I never thought about it.
People only think of it in the, like,
I thought
a grown
consent was
man
like
with a child.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I thought consent was like, man, why am I arguing for this right now? I'm not arguing.
For the sake of, yes, I understand.
I'm just trying to educate myself.
Devil's advocate.
So I'm 14 years old. I'm like, hey, me and my girlfriend at the time, we want to engage in this act. And my girlfriend at the time was like, hey, I want to engage in this act.
Right.
I never looked at that as like I was doing a wrong thing.
I'm not saying that you were.
Okay,
I'm saying that it wasn't legal.
In the eyes of the greater municipality of Missouri.
Yeah, it is not. It is
I
not
was
legal.
a bad boy.
In most states, some states the legal age of consent is like 13, but it's still like people think that like, oh, then like you can be 26 and screw a 13-year-old.
No,
not true. You can be 14
no one thinks that.
and screw a 13-year-old.
Yeah. Well, you know what I think
well,
is.
you say no one thinks
yeah,
that.
Yeah, I was about to catch myself.
Yeah, she's right though, because legally children can't sleep with each other. It's against the law for children to engage in sex, period, whether it's with other children, adults, teenagers, whatever. It is illegal. And a child that's doing that needs investigation. When children are engaging in that, someone needs to do investigation. If there is, if there's kids at a school sleeping around, someone needs to investigate. Like Angela White said, like she was doing it when she was in school. I don't remember what age she said, but it was young, and she was getting problems for that because she was sexual or whatever. But she was being abused, whether she wants to admit it or not. Same with Lily Phillips. But if teachers find out, especially, they need to make reports. They need to do something about it. They can't keep those things a secret, because that means some kid is being abused somewhere. You can't. Like, I don't understand this guy not understanding that the law is the law. Children don't understand what they're doing when they do that. They don't know. They can't fully grasp what they're doing. They don't understand the consequences of their actions in that moment. They don't even know what they're participating in. They're just seeing it and want to try it.
Yeah, they don't have the same understanding about things, right? And that's really what people need to understand. And like, you look at this, and when these people aren't getting the help that they need, they're going to have problems.
Yep.
A lot of problems.
New class of villains in society.
Right? Like, because now we're going to go back and we're going to bring something here, because you now have to sit down and see a lot of these boys are watching the violent porn. The girls are watching the violent porn. They're pushing the pedophilia that adults having sex with children in this whole situation. And what do you think it's going to do when you're sitting down there having these children watch this, and then they start seeing this and it becomes normalized? And listen to the people that are talking about this, and remember what the first guy that we said, that the unscrupulous men are the ones that are benefiting from this. And start thinking about listen to this.
Let me just read a couple of the names of your films. I want to butt your daughter 12. My wife and I are the babysitter 6.
Yep.
Oh my God, I my daughter's BFF.
All are the same vein.
It's kind of selling a fantasy that, sex with underage girls is hot. Do you feel conflicted all about that?
I don't shoot it. I'm in some of those scenes. I mean, is the babysitter fantasy really not that common? I think it is.
Hi, I'm Sally, the babysitter.
Hey, good morning. How are you doing today?
Good, and you?
Pretty good. So what I'm thinking here is, why don't I just give you a full-time job here? Right here, come on. You sure you don't want to help me out?
Sweetheart, your wife's gonna be here in about an hour.
I've always known that everything I do on camera is being watched by people at home. Media does affect us. It does affect our worldview. It does affect our personal view. It affects our self-image.
There's a sleeping beauty.
I've tried to be very careful in how I conduct myself on camera for the last 30 years. The rule I tell people is, if you don't do it at home for free, don't do it on camera for money. And very, very concretely and with deliberate intent, I was always role modeling good sexual behavior on women. I married your dad when you were really young, and now, he's gone, and we just have each other. I would like to be the person who gives you a little more experience before you go off to college.
It's a little weird.
The movie you made this last year called Seduced by Mommy.
That'd be okay.
I'm wondering, what is the message behind that film?
The quasi-incest porn is a subgenre, it's a sub-fetish. And I'm not gonna tell anybody, and it'll just be something that you know.
In the film, you say to who was your pseudo-daughter, don't worry, I won't tell anybody.
I don't remember the scene, but I don't doubt that I made it, believe me. I don't doubt that I made it.
We won't tell anybody about this, which sounds textbook pedophile type activity. And again, I'm putting the question to you because I'm concerned about the message that sends. Thinking of pornography that would promote a fantasy of having sex with your child.
I honestly don't remember the scene, although I don't doubt that I made it. But I think it also keeps me out enough that I don't do it. I won't do that again. I won't do any of the mommy porn. I don't like it. I don't like the. That's one taboo I don't share. I don't have a fantasy of it. Didn't happen to me.
Then why do it?
That mother probably, honestly, needed the work that week.
Going back to the point of a message, because sexual abuse is such a big problem, and because it does ruin so many people's lives, maybe that's not the fantasy that we want to be selling.
It might be the fantasy we want to be selling, but clearly someone's buying it. So it is a fantasy. So again, if someone's going to buy it, someone's going to make it. This is a completely capitalistic commercial enterprise.
I'm excited.
Appearing in another incest-themed video after the fact is crazy. But like she said, she needs the money. Honestly, this makes me upset because when she's like, oh, I won't tell anyone, and the other guy with the babysitter who just whips his junk out and says, are you sure you don't want to help me out? This makes it very clear why all these men are so disgusting and vile in their approach with women. When I see men who start approaching me and other women like this, I'm gonna be like, you watch porn, don't you? You watch porn. You need to stop because women don't like that. Like, they will just push themselves on you, maybe not whip themselves out. Some men do, doubt without a doubt, but like the way that they just push themselves on you and touch you, and then the wording, the language that they use, oh please, are you sure? Like, they try anything to negotiate with you as if you didn't know that you didn't like them already. Like, oh, are you sure? Those type of men need to be strangled. When I hear men talk this way, I get my blood boils so much, I want to vomit. I cannot stand what I watched there. That is the most predatory, disgusting, nature-minded type of thinking. But most men today, I don't know a single woman who hasn't had a man negotiate her into sex. Unwillingly negotiate her into sex. And most women, they regret sex. And most of the time when women don't tell men which men that they've had sex with, it's not because they feel bad about how many men they slept with. Most women will tell you, yeah, I actually slept with this many men. It's because the men that they ended up sleeping with negotiated them into it nonstop, pressing and pressing and pressing. Oh, please. And all these subtle, small things that would make you want to wring his throat. Honest to God. Where you feel so slimy and disgusting. It's like, why the hell would you push me like that? And what are you supposed to do with a man that's that large, who clearly has no respect for boundaries, and he's constantly pressing you in the most slimy, disgusting way, and corners you. They will corner you in a moment when you are at your most vulnerable, so really your only option is fight him off or just give in to his negotiations. Like, honestly, it is the most violent, disgusting thing. These kind of people, porn needs to go, man. Porn needs to go. Porn is training men to be disgusting,
When
vile,
they're putting this in,
and women too.
what when they're putting this in the hands of children, they're finishing them. And this
Yeah,
is where when you sat
at
down
a
and
small age, kids are doing this. You know
well,
how many flashbacks I just had from like school of men trying weird crap on me and
just
my friends?
then, but now you sit down and you think about this, and you see like they have the mommy porn, the teacher porn,
Gross,
and
man.
everything else like this.
Nasty.
Now you're gonna sit down and understand why you're seeing a rise in this.
Women raping
Well, new
children.
developments in a case that shocked the country. The teacher impregnated by her 8th grade student will face a judge for the first time this morning. Our Sophia Ojeda is live downtown with the latest and some pretty serious charges against her, Sophia.
Yeah, good morning, Rachel. She is now facing continuous sexual abuse of a child after she admitted to having a sexual relationship with her 8th grade student. Prosecutors say 24-year-old Alexandria Vera, a teacher at Stovall Middle School, not only engaged in a sexual relationship with one of her 13-year-old students, the mother of one also got pregnant by the 8th grader. But in court documents, Vera says the student's parents knew about the relationship and they approved of it, allowing the teen to spend the night at Vera's home in Spring, where they would engage in sex on a regular basis. She told an investigator she would drop him off at home in the morning so he could catch the bus to school. The relationship allegedly lasted for 4 months, ending in January with a pregnancy that Vera terminated. Vera turned herself in on Wednesday morning. She's currently out on bond. Again, she now faces 1 count of continuous sexual abuse of a child. She is due here in Harris County Court at 9 o'clock this morning. We'll be here and we'll bring you the latest developments coming up on Channel 2 at 11. Live downtown, Sophia Ojeda, KPRC, Channel 2 News.
Yeah, honestly, that's sick, man. This is what I'm saying. That kind of stuff needs to stop. That
Oh yes.
honestly, and the problem is, like how I was mentioning, how the pornography shows that stuff, and then the men start like picking up those behaviors. The women, they don't know, they know it's wrong. But because it's like a chess match and they lost the match, they're in checkmate because with all the negotiations and being cornered, they know it's wrong. They just don't know how to explain how they got checkmated, which is why they just completely avoid the fact of sleeping with the person in general. They try to avoid even talking about it, adding that to the list. But the women that end up watching and doing, I don't even understand how you like the men are at least doing that to their age mate, and like the women are just going to like small children, and I don't understand where that jump in confusion happened, because maybe some of the men are raping kids, probably, but I mean,
Yes.
like, I don't see the men maybe the men at school are getting away with it better than the women. I don't know, but the women are blatantly, outright, publicly, instead of doing this type of violation to their age mate, they're doing it to grade 8, like children. Like, that's I don't understand.
It's there are men that do this in schools and so forth, but women get away with it a lot more, and the women will more likely to go into these types of situations to do this because they generally tend to like to have a closer connection to their victims, where men want to be more anonymous because they just want to get away with it. Like women, they want that close connection, and the way that they groom, it manifests itself in slightly different ways, and so forth. So this is where you're going to see probably a higher. If we actually began to understand the amount of women that were doing this, we'd probably be astounded, because most of them never get caught.
Yeah, but I'm saying a lot of them are getting caught.
Yes.
I don't understand how so many of them are going to children, but the men are just not. We're not seeing the same. It's like every week there's a new woman in the news raping a child in school, but I don't see the numbers of men matching the number of women raping children in school.
There are a lot of men, but it's just
but I'm just saying, are they getting away with it more than the women? Then they're just more covert about it.
More men will do other areas than schools.
You're saying they're more anonymous. That's why the women are getting caught, because they're building a relationship.
Think
with
about this: when you're having women, when you look at the teachers of younger students, they're predominantly mostly women. You don't start seeing that even out until they get into like the higher grades, right?
Yeah, like middle school, high school. Yeah, more men teacher. Yeah,
right. So you're gonna see a lot more women that are in that situation. That you're gonna see a higher. I mean, not a lot more, but I mean, you see women in that situation because they have more access, so more predators, easier for them. It's like daycares. Women abuse kids in daycares, right? Like, you don't see very many men working in daycares. That's almost never happened.
I worked in a daycare with all women, and I was like, I'll never work in I will never let my children in a daycare ever in my life. Never. Yeah.
But the whole the fact of the matter is that now we're having these situations. You're watching this rise in abuse, and then you're gonna listen, especially here in Canada. We're gonna go back and listen to a clip of what the mother talks about when with this whole situation and how it begins to actually happen, which is it's demonstrating what happens when good men do not do anything. So let's just let this play.
One of those faces belonged to a girl 764 named Alexis, but he had no way of knowing who or where she was until the fall of 2023, when he got a tip about a possible victim.
And with that information was able to reach out. When I talked with her mother first, and her mother just talked about how this guy was essentially controlling her daughter.
Detective Basco was about to make a stunning discovery.
She told me what her online name was.
Apparently, he had seen photos of me on MK's phone.
He had seen the letters that she had wrote in blood.
I signed it Love Alexis on it, and so he'd been looking for Alexis. My mom said, oh, they named her Alexis. He was like, oh my God.
Trinity was finally able to put a face to her worst abuser.
What went through your mind when you heard he was arrested?
Thank God. I felt safe about speaking up.
When you actually make a connection to a human being and you're speaking to her on the phone, how does that change even the way you look at the investigation?
Absolutely. Hearing Trinity say, this is what he did to me, knowing that he's here so far away, it still is hard to wrap my brain around. That's a scary thought, especially as a parent, that your kid could be 1,000 miles away from a suspect or from a victimizer, and yet they have such a hold or a control.
Cutler pleaded guilty to one count of distributing child pornography and is serving 7 years in prison. Trinity's case wasn't included in his indictment, but Detective Basco wanted her to know police believed her. He arranged for the FBI from North Carolina to travel to Red Deer last May and notified the RCMP.
So this is the room that we had first come into.
The meeting with the FBI took place here at the Child Advocacy Center. The RCMP was also there.
I was really able to hopefully give more information that these people can go away for longer periods of time, and that hopefully they'll find more, because I also gave a list of names.
That list of names included more than a dozen members who Trinity says exploited her. Among them, the founder of 764, also known as Felix, whose real name is Bradley Cadenhead.
Like the head off or I'll fuck your whole life up.
You might remember Felix was the one forcing a girl to behead a hamster. Trinity hopes the name she gave police will lead to more arrests.
This whole situation is giving me power back. I felt like I lost a piece of myself to this.
It was the very first time that she was looked in the face and told that she was a true victim and that she didn't deserve what happened to her.
An RCMP officer led the interview. Maria says it was the first time Mounties spoke to Trinity about 764 since her suicide attempt 3 years before.
So what do you think about the fact that it seems that the RCMP only really started to talk to you about 764 after the FBI wanted to talk to you?
I feel like, wow, you dropped the ball. When somebody comes to you with such a far-fetched story, not only that, but cuts all over a child's body and pictures, maybe you should have believed us.
She says the interview lasted 7 hours.
They said, do you have any questions? And I did say, where the Where were you? Where were you? Where were you when I needed you?
How did they explain that?
They started stammering and didn't know how to answer that question.
And she continued to be victimized for years after. I appreciate how kind and soft they were with my daughter, but can I trust that if a mom calls tomorrow, they're gonna listen to her? No.
Yeah, and this is the kind of filth that continues, and this is the kind of filth that is going on in Canada, because that's the same police department that I went and took the human trafficking complaints and gave them all that information around the same time that the FBI came up from the United States last year.
The RCMP doesn't care about children whatsoever. When I was a child, me and my friends were walking back from Tim Hortons one day. And my one friend, Gabby, she ended up being randomly depressed. I think she was arguing with one of the other girls. Next thing you know, she's walking in the middle of the road. Then a bunch of cars start piling up and they stop, and this one guy's like driving slowly beside her. Someone calls RCMP. RCMP pull up. They start interrogating me and the other girls that were there. One of the RCMP asks me if I'm a prostitute. I'm wearing all boy clothing, by the way. Top to bottom, all boy clothing and sneakers. Because I was a tomboy. I was just whatever. In middle school, like small kid. The other girls were older than me too. One of them was a scene kid, emo, just wearing regular clothes. And I'm sitting there like, what the hell's going on? I was like, I'm going to tell my parents. He was like, you know what? I'll arrest you. I was like, call my parents. I wish you would. My granny ended up cussing people, but they are vile. They don't care about children. They will take any opportunity they can to exploit you whatsoever. And if you show any sign of like fear, I'm sure it would have went a completely different way if I showed that I was afraid of those officers. And the one friend, he was like, oh, tell me your address and all this information about yourself. I was like, no, my one friend gave my address and personal information to the officer. After that, I wasn't friends with her. But actually, we had a fight and I definitely threw hands. But needless to say, the officer got put in his place by my family. But these RCMP, no, they don't care about children. I'm not in the least bit shocked of anything that we're seeing. I mean, it's next level. This is next level covering up crime and just letting things go by, because this is extreme what this girl has experienced. But this has been, the police have been mistreating children and families for years. They don't care about anybody.
Yes, and they're gonna
anybody.
Well, and they're letting this abuse happen and letting people getting damaged and traumatized, and then they're not getting the help they need. They're not getting these predator off the street, and they're getting more abuse. The men are being abused. The girls are being abused. They're both abusing each other and all of this stuff. And then you're going to now see that they're sowing more seeds of destruction. And we're going to go back and we're going to listen to a woman talk about what she would have done if she was never abused as a child. And we'll just go back and we'll just let it play.
Lisa Ann?
In this complete toxic culture of young women waiting until they turn 18, the first thing they want to do is start an OnlyFans.
Mhm.
That is not healthy. That is not good. That is not where we should be headed. And sadly, some of these people came from families who provided them more than you and I had. Had I had a better family unit, this would not have been the path I took.
What would you have done?
You know, many years ago, I said I would have been a sports agent, but you have to be a lawyer. You know, now that I know myself, I would have done anything. A nurse, a teacher, a worker at it doesn't matter. I now know myself enough to know that as long as I was connecting with people that
They're creating the circumstances for that to happen to an exponential level that never happened before. Right? This is really where we're at. and so forth. And that's what happens when they do all this stuff with the pornography, right? And putting it in the hands of children, and then getting the children to abuse each other, right? And when you have people that are going to be in worse situations, because it wasn't like it was when I was a kid, when she was a kid, and so forth. And now you're seeing that, like, how many children? Like 22% of children under 10. 22% of children under 10 are watching pornography. And then they were getting abused. And then that one girl, she got abused and then just went ahead and needed the validation. And what do you think is going to happen to the boys that get abused? And then they're put on this pornography. Right? They got less boundaries, and then they're going to go into this filth, and they're just going to continue to do this. And it's just going to be a vicious cycle. Then you're going to have a woman that's been abused of her life raising a kid. And she got boys. What's going to happen? It's just going to get worse. And then there's going to be less access because she doesn't have enough time to watch that kid and everything that they're going to do. And what do you think is going to happen? That kid's going to get their hands back on the porn and all of that kind of stuff. And it's just going to see this going to get worse and worse and worse because, like the guy at the beginning said, these unscrupulous men that hate women are the ones who are benefiting the most. And then you're going to sit down and see more things like this. Let me pull up this clip here because I want people to understand that this is all connected when you start seeing things like this. And then you have guys that go out and traffic these women that are coming out in those situations that are all busted and broken. So let's go back and listen to this clip.
It could be your daughter, neighbor, or classmate. Women say they answered a modeling ad, but instead were tricked into appearing in pornography. Now, some of them are suing 3 San Diego men behind the organization. Thanks for being with us tonight. I'm Catherine Garcia.
I'm Mark Mullen. NBC7 Investigates reporter Maury Payton spoke to some women who say other women helped lure them into the scheme. And the organization even shared the videos with her family and friends.
Catherine, Mark, we spoke to women not involved in this lawsuit, but they say the same thing, that these 3 San Diego men promised the videos would never be posted online, but they ended up on a very popular adult site. Those videos were seen by the women's family and friends and ruined their lives.
I felt humiliated, exhausted, drained, and that I just sold my soul.
It was a devastating feeling. I felt like I was lied to.
Different women, same story. Women from San Diego and cities nationwide, even Canada, responded to modeling ads on Craigslist.
I had just turned 17.
It was just the beginning of what the women say was an intricate scheme. After clicking the ad, women say they left their contact information on what appeared to be legitimate modeling websites.
It was definitely to broaden my shooting experience as I was trying to establish myself as a model.
The women say next a man contacted them, offering up to $6,000 for a 30-minute sex video. The women say they were scared, hesitant. It wasn't what they signed up for. That's when one of the so-called reference girls contacted them.
She told me it's gonna be okay, they're nice.
According to another reference girl who gave a sworn statement in the lawsuit against the men, their job was to lie to the women, promising the videos would be kept private and never posted online. The reference girl said one of the men, quote, coached me on how to correspond with the prospective women to gain their trust, even if that included telling lies and hiding information.
I don't think I would have followed through with it if she did not talk to me and text me and reassure me of her experience almost every other day.
From there, women say they were flown to San Diego and taken to high-end hotels. The women, some as young as 18, were told to relax. In some cases, offered drugs.
We smoked and we drank.
Then they were given a contract.
I read the first page. It was the size of a good book, and they rushed me through it. They did not let me look at it for more than 5 minutes because they kept rushing me, saying, we're out of time, we're out of time.
Then women were filmed having sex. Some say it was very painful, and they were emotionally distressed, but forced to continue for hours. Some say they were paid far less than promised.
They were lying to our faces and making our decisions based off of what they told us.
These attorneys represent 22 women who are suing the three men and their business entities. They say the men behind the scheme are actually the owners of a popular adult website, girlsdoporn.com.
Everyone that I've talked to, 100+ women, with the exception of 2, have told me they were lied to about the entire process.
Brian Holm represents the women suing actor Andre Garcia, videographer and owner Matthew Wolf, and owner Michael Pratt for fraud and coercion. The three men have an office in the Spreckles building downtown. Holm says the men never disclosed they ran a pornography site. The videos eventually ended up on that site and others.
I've counted up well over 1 billion views of their videos.
Even worse, Holm says the women's real names and contact information were leaked online. Some women allege in their lawsuit their college professors, classmates, and employers received emails with the videos.
Frankly, we should proceed further.
Aaron Sadock represents Garcia, Wolf, and Pratt. He's tried to get the case dismissed several times. Following a court appearance for the case, we asked him for an on-camera interview. He declined. But an email to NBC7 Investigates, he said the women entered into written and verbal contracts to shooting the videos, allowing them to be used, quote, in any manner. He said the declaration of the so-called reference girls should not be taken, quote, as the gospel, and models were free to decide whether to star in a pornographic video or not. The women's attorneys say regardless, that contract is void.
When you try to hide behind a contract to deceive someone, to conceal information from someone, those contracts are not binding.
Women say their lives were forever changed. Even friends, family, their own parents shut them out.
I didn't see them for the holidays. I didn't hear from them for my birthday.
It definitely creates a lot of psychological issues when you go through something like this, and I just want to make sure that this doesn't happen to anybody else.
We were there on January 24th when a Superior Court judge issued a tentative ruling indicating the women made a sufficient showing that Garcia, Wolf, and Pratt engaged in malice, fraud, or oppression. That same day, owner Michael Pratt filed for bankruptcy. His filing shows he makes $60,000 a month. The case is now on hold, though, until a judge decides whether this case should instead move forward in federal court. The women we interviewed did not join the lawsuit out of fear it would cause more damage to their reputation, or they were past the statute of limitations. I'm Mari Payton, NBC7 Investigates.
And to read the full statement from the men's attorney, if you're interested, you can go to NBC7.com and search porn scheme.
Yeah, I don't want to. I'm sick of this. I want to throw up. I don't want to do it anymore. I cannot do this anymore. I'm tired of this. I am tired of this. I want to curse.
This is where people need to start doing things, right? Because at the end of the day, this is happening everywhere. Everywhere. Some places are worse than others. But how did this happen? This happens when good people, good men, do nothing. And they sit down and say, oh, well, I can't do this, or, oh, I can't do that. Oh, yes, you can. You can't be afraid to lose your job, because what's going to happen if it's your kids, right?
Yeah.
Your loved ones in that situation, right? Sometimes you need to sacrifice what needs to be done. I'm not telling everybody to just go throw away your job. But I mean, you need to protect your family, protect your loved ones, because if these guys aren't dealt with, this is only going to get worse. Right? And everybody's watched on some police show when the criminal's getting caught and he knows he's going to get caught, he's going to do everything to get away. You still got to go after him and make sure he gets caught. And that he doesn't kill the guy who's laying down the spike trap for him. Because how many police officers got killed trying to lay down the spike trap? Lots. So, I mean, we got to do better, right? We got to make sure that we get to come together and help the children, because they're going to go in and try to poison as many children as they can. Like, these people go after children. And you see what happens when they sit down and say that they have what's going to happen when they have moms? It's a lot different if a father's coming down there, right? A lot different. And when they start splitting up families and doing things to destroy the families, it makes it easier for these predators to go after the kids. Whether they're men or women, if there's only a single parent, it's way easier. Yeah, and I think that we really need to start looking at this, and I'm just gonna bring something up a little bit about final thing about when they're having a conversation about some of the things about the Bible. And I think that if people had more of a practical understanding of it, there would be less issues. But let's just listen to what they have to say.
I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, there are pieces that are contradictory.
Right.
And I don't believe that it is on accident that it is contradictory. I think life is difficult.
Yes.
And I think there are 50 shades of gray,
Yeah.
and there are certain things that are quote-unquote bad or good, but it's like, if you murder a murderer, is that bad?
Yeah.
If you...
I wouldn't say, I have to say, I disagree with I don't think that the Bible is contradictory. I think that I think that we don't understand nearly what we think we do. And so people have, like, decided, they have this book, and they have this amount of words, and they've, like, taken that and, like, made it mean a whole bunch of other things that they don't know that it means. You know, like, like, I had gotten in a discussion with someone about, like, birth control. And I'm like, well, it doesn't say nothing about birth control in the damn Bible. You know, so we're taking, like, something that said something, and then, like, trying to stretch that into a whole bunch of other things that, like, it's hard to say now. Like, even, like, this, like, wine. I heard John MacArthur, a pastor in Sun Valley, talking about wine. And, like, the biblical wine, that it was, like, fermented for 3 days and, like, cut with water, like, 8 times and boiled. And that's what they meant by wine. And so people are like, well, they drink wine in the Bible, so it's okay to drink wine. And his point was, like, there is no similarity to the wine that we drink now versus what they're talking about in the Bible. In those times, it was cleaner, it was healthier to drink wine than
fermentation, because it
than
eliminated
their
all the
water.
dysentery water.
Right. So, like, I mean, it wasn't clean. The water, they didn't have water filters. So I think that, like, you have to keep in mind when these things were said, what were they, you know, who were they?
The context
being said
of
to?
time.
Yes. And who, like, you know, a lot of Paul's writings, like, who he's talking to when he says all these things. So people are taking things very literally, and other things they decide aren't literal. So, you know, people like to pick and choose what stuff they want to believe out of the Bible. Like, oh, well, that part's just hypothetical. Like, who decided that? Like, I guess there's some science to it, supposedly. But to me, I'm like, I don't know. I'm reading the same words as you and hearing, like, a whole different thing. So
Yeah.
and I'm not illiterate. I'm not saying I'm the smartest person in the world, but I'm literate. And so I'm like, I don't understand how we're reading the same little, you know,
passage, but getting two completely different outputs.
yeah, hearing to, like, the opposite thing, you know, out of it. Like, and I'm not saying that I'm right, but it is confusing. And so I think that, like, you know, God has given us what he's given us, and he obviously, I think he didn't make it all that clear for a reason. Because there is human error, and there is free will to whatever extent, and he gives us enough rope to hang ourselves, you know?
Well,
And,
if we're told what to do, then where is our autonomy? Where is our free will?
right. Well, and I think that, I don't remember if this was, like, something somebody said or if it was actually in the Bible, because I do not know how to quote the whole Bible. But
Neither do I.
But I think I heard something about, like, to the extent of that God gives us free will because he wants us to choose him. Like, he could just make us all bow to him and do whatever he wants, right? But he wants us to love him and to choose to turn to him. And so that would go with, you know, like, our actions.
That woman's very smart. I actually like her. She always has, like, intelligent things to say, and she's right about the wine. I was telling someone about that the other day. They're like, oh, Jesus turned the water into wine. I'm like, do you know Jesus was a Nazarene? He took the Nazarene vow. Do you understand? Like, there's so many different reasons why the wine thing is not true, but yeah,
It's also freshly
the context.
It's also freshly squeezed grape juice.
Exactly.
If you just took grapes and squeezed them out and made a drink, that was wine. There was no word for grape juice. There was none.
Exactly. It wasn't grape juice. It wasn't, the Bible wasn't going to say, oh, grape juice. And then Jesus served grape juice.
No, they called it
First of all, they
wine.
don't, exactly.
Everything was wine. One was unfermented, the other one was fermented, right?
Yep.
And so that's really what it was. But at the end of the day, there's enough in the Bible. And a lot of people have problems with the Bible because they don't understand the principles behind it. And yes, love. Everything is motivated by love. And if you serve God, you're going to love him. And if you're going to love him, you're going to love his children. Because what person is going to get married to somebody that has children and then beat their children and treat them terribly, take them out in the back and try to kill them?
That's crazy.
Or stand there and watch them get killed and do nothing? You think that that person is going to sit there and they're like, little Johnny was drowning, and they're like, why did you save him? For what? It's not my responsibility. How long do you think they're going to be married? How long do you think they're going to keep you around if you're going to let the kids die or kill them? So why do you think we got to do that to God's children? Right? How can we sit down and say to God that we love God and we're going to sit down and allow this evil to happen? We're not going to lift a finger to do it because we're afraid? Right? Oh, I'm sorry. I can't pull your kid out of this pool because I was afraid.
There's a lot of stupid people like that.
But if it was your kid in the pool, would you want that?
Some people wouldn't even save their own child drowning.
I
some
get
people are the ones who push their child in there to drown to begin with. So
I get that. But I mean, at the end of the day, there's a lot of people who call on the name of the Lord. And this is the people that we need to stand up, because if Christians were doing their job, even if 10, 15% of Christians were actually doing what God wanted them to do, this would be a fundamentally very different situation. Right? They punish people. Like I was looking at Tina Peters. She did her job. Not only did she do her job, because the Bible says that we have to be faithful in business. And we need to do all, not slothful in business. So we're going to do things. We have to do this like we're doing it for God and be faithful to our jobs and reflect our Christianity. When there was a crime committed, she recorded evidence of that so that those people could be properly prosecuted. What ended up happening? There she's now sitting in prison for doing a Christian duty. Anybody who stood up and did what was right and did what was in spite of the consequences, that's your Christian duty. God wants you to do that, because you can't allow somebody to die. You can't allow somebody to do wickedness. And in the courts, we are called to ensure that judgment is done in the gates. And that's the court system. Those are the judges. Because if every part of the government somehow collapsed, as long as we had the court system, we could have any country function until you rebuild the government. But if you have no justice system, no way to administer justice, then you got nothing. It doesn't matter what part of the government you have. If it's completely lawless, nobody has any protection. Right? Imagine what would happen if there was no judgment for the wicked. That Satan and his minions could just run rampant throughout all time. And all the people that serve him. What would that be like? I'd be like, God, just get rid of me completely, because I can't live like this. Because I could not live for all of eternity in this. It would be better not to exist than to have to live throughout eternity through this. So, I mean, really all I got for tonight, man. We need to do what God asks, and we need to stand up, and we need to call on the name of the Lord and stop this filthy evil. Like, the children need protection. Like, you can't have there will be no church if there's no children to take this on, to continue it on when the older ones are gone. Right? That's why it's one of the reasons why children are important, because if we didn't keep having children, not just children, but bringing people into the church and bringing people to Jesus, the church would die. Because when the people are dead, who's going to take care of it? Who's going to keep it going? Right? This is why we're in where we're in. Like, you look at feminism. What's it done? The birth rates are plummeting. It's giving the most vile men the most access to women. And then they're going to sit down and think that all men are bad. And then now they have those same men that are going ahead and putting hands in pornography in the hands of the children, both boys and girls. Like those girls that we saw before that said they didn't know that you couldn't say no and have somebody not rape you. Right? Because they thought that was normal. What are they watching on porn? Guys raping girls. So, and then what do boys do? They start strangling the girls because that's what they're watching. Because the girls realize that it's not as fun as they made it look like on the videos. So, anyway, you have anything to say before we close?
Nah, man, I'm done.
All I gotta say is we need people to stand up. This is about time. Like God needs the faithful to get up and start doing something. This is enough. I've had enough. Like I will go till the day I drop, because I mean it would be better to die in the service of God than to live under this filth. I couldn't do it. Just can't do it anymore. All right, that's really all there is to it. There's only one way to go forward, and do it according to God's will. And with that, I'm looking for people and, come out and help and support what the work that God wants to get done. This is all I got to say right now, because we need the help. And I mean, God is calling people to stand up and to do what's right, and to start, living righteously and showing the world what it's like to be righteous and what God can do in his people. Right? Come together and do what's right. Anyway, I'll close here with a prayer. Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for your love, grace, and mercy. Thank you for the hope that you have given us this day. Open our hearts and our minds to your will. And Father, this day I ask of you to pour out your Spirit upon your people and help us to do what is right and pleasing in your sight. Strengthen us, guide us, direct us, and help the men that we would humble ourselves before God, and that we would come to you for the strength that we need to continue on in this fight. And Lord, watch over all the men and the women that are standing up to do what is right, and help us to come together, that we would work with the women to rebuild our families, our churches, our community, and our nation, and we would protect the children from this wicked, filthy evil that has come to destroy them, and that they would have a chance at having a life free of this wicked indoctrination, is my prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. Thank you guys all for coming, and we will see you again next time. God bless.